I'm Sanne from A Whole New High, and in this week's video I'm going to talk about the similarities and differences between psychedelic therapy and holotropic breathwork. So first let's get a little bit into what holotropic breathwork is, so you can get a deeper understanding of what I'm going to dive deeper into in this video. So holotropic breathwork is created by Stan Grof and his wife and also his team, and he's a great pioneer in psychedelic research, psychedelic therapy, and he has a tremendous amount of experience with psychedelic therapy. And he's also one of the pioneers who really emphasized the importance of setting an intention, and also setting and how it influences our experience. And what you might also know is that for a long time, and still in a lot of countries, psychedelics are still illegal. So this happened kind of around the 70s, so when actually Stan Grof and a lot of other people were really making a lot of progression with psychedelic therapy and research, but unfortunately it had to be stopped. Out of psychedelic therapy, Stan Grof created holotropic breathwork, because what he noticed that when more towards the end of a session, when people were coming off the substance of LSD, for example, he noticed that whenever they again went into specific psychosomatic, specific physical symptoms, like feeling heaviness on the shoulder or pressure on the chest, that he noticed whenever that his clients started to breathe through that area again and start to breathe more rapidly, they kind of went back into the process and back into the experience. And this later, to kind of give it a little bit short, this later led to him developing holotropic breathwork, because he started to research also how breath is used in all these different cultures across the globe to get into an altered state of consciousness, and using our breath for healing purposes. So this is kind of a very short summary of how holotropic breathwork is created. So how is it different from other types of breathwork that are out there today? So holotropic breathwork is not necessarily different in a breathing technique or the way you actually breathe, because during holotropic breathwork, and similar with any type of breathwork, the way we breathe is we breathe more rapidly, so we start breathing faster. And what is very important, that we breathe without stopping the breath. So usually when we breathe in our day-to-day life, we breathe, we hold it for a moment, and then we exhale again, right? When we do breath work, the breath is like kind of one continuous movement. So after the inhale, immediately we exhale. So there's no stopping between the breath. And when we do this after each other, and like I said, to do it faster, we are able to get into an altered state of consciousness. So what makes holotropic breathwork different is that it has a specific framework created so people can have a healing experience when they experience altered state of consciousness. And what makes it interesting, that this framework is almost exactly the same that Stan Grof used for psychedelic therapy. So for example, I'm going to go into a little bit already the similarities. So that what's very important in holotropic breathwork is the preparation for the experience. So people are first of all prepared in experience, so that first of all that they already meet the facilitator and the practitioner before the actual breathwork session, so they're able to ask questions, they get a very deep understanding of what holotropic breathwork is. You can also make agreements with the facilitator, so that the space that you're going to go into So basically the breathwork circle is, or you can also have a private session, it feels very, very safe. And that is a very important component of holotropic breathwork. And the same is with psychedelic therapy, that we feel very safe going into this experience and that we're well prepared. So in the sense of what to do when certain emotions come up, or what we can do when we feel stuck in an experience, and how someone who is guiding or facilitating that experience, how it's able to help us. So this is already a very big similarity. So that because, and this is also what I experienced both in my breathwork experience, but also in my experience with psychedelic therapy, is that the safe setting is essential. And because when we're in a safe setting, we're able to dive deep into our emotions, and especially then it also feels safe for us to move through things that might be more challenging and more difficult, like certain emotions coming up, or a certain trauma coming up. And so the Stan Grof really understood that is essential for both the psychedelic experience but also the holotropic breathwork experiences. So another similarity is that we can, and I already mentioned it, is that we can do holotropic breathwork and psychedelic therapy. We can do it both in individual settings, so one-on-one with a guide, as well as in a group setting. And this is very similar. And the way holotropic breathwork works is usually in what they call the breather and the sitter setting. So that means that one person is the breather, so they're going into its breathwork experience, and the other person sits there next to the person breathing, and giving them kind of the presence and the witnessing they need during their experience. And then later that day, the breather and the sitter, they switch roles, and then again they do it. So let's now get also into a few more similarities of the experience, and that first of all is music. So music is a very important component for both breathwork and psychedelic therapy, because the music helps us to get deeper into our emotions, deeper into our body, and deeper into the experience. What I found differently is that the music during breathwork is really, really loud. And the reason why it is so loud is because we can also express a lot of things vocally during breathwork. So it's very common, and I think even more common than in a psychedelic experience, that we need to express things vocally and physically. So it's very common during breathwork experience that people start to move their body in these weird ways, or they feel like they need to scream, or they need to make certain noises to really express the emotions and the things that are still stuck in their body. I found this to be less in psychedelic experiences. It is still common for people to move certain ways, and for people to need to express something vocally also within the space of psychedelic therapy. It happens actually quite often, but I found it in breathwork more frequent. So in breathwork it was almost, in some even subgroup ceremonies, that everyone is really moving or physically expressing or vocally. And I found that a little bit less in psychedelic therapy. Even though with holotropic breathwork I was able to have very deep experiences, for me it wasn't the same amount of depth that, for example, a psychedelic experience has for me. And one of the reasons might be the length. So first of all, it's a big difference in time. So I think a psychedelic experience, it also depends on what substance you use, but for example, when we work with psilocybin mushrooms, usually the experience itself, the psilocybin experience, is usually from 4 to 6 hours, with of course some exceptions. Breathwork usually is around 2 to 3 hours, so you could kind of see it's like half. But I don't think the time frame was the only thing. So first of all, we could have a longer breathwork experience, of course, but to be able to breathe and keep that experience up for so long might be a little bit more challenging. And I know that for me, after I think for us it was around 3 hours, for me it was good. You know, I was ready to get out of the experience. What it is with breathwork, we kind of have to keep the process going through breathing. So breathing in a particular way, like non-stop breathing, which can be a little bit more difficult to keep up. So it's very important that when we breathe fast and we breathe in that cyclical way, that we're able to keep up that breathing pattern. And for 2 or 3 hours, it is actually work. And I think that was the woman said who facilitated, like, that's why it's called breath work. We still have to work for kind of getting into that altered state. And with when we work with substances, you get into that state. And once you're kind of in that state, you're in it. And you're not getting out of it that easily. Actually, that's why I think for people who find it more difficult to go more within themselves, that psychedelics already support you really in that process, which makes it, of course, more intense. It makes it a lot longer, but it also helps us to go so much deeper into our intention for the session. And what I found with breathwork, that it was, first of all, like I mentioned before, very physical, in the sense of that our breath really connects us on a very amazing, beautiful, deep level, really deeply to our body. So for me, the experience was a lot about physical movement, expressing things physically, vocally, which was a really cool experience, because I also experienced how, for example, sound and expressing ourselves in different way can be really healing. And what I find is different with psychedelic therapy is that with psychedelic therapy, I really go into kind of a philosophical journey, in a sense, into what certain problems are. And I feel even more guided into something. And especially working with psilocybin mushrooms, that we're able to see things from so many different perspectives. And we're really going even more deeper, I found, in a very emotional journey. So the way I can kind of explain this also a little bit, this difference in going deeper, I kind of want you to now imagine that we have a very big, vast ocean. And there's so many different ways where we can explore the ocean. And you could kind of see the ocean as the collective consciousness. So our consciousness all combined and together is this big vast ocean, and we all have our own personal consciousness, like our own unique stream that we can go deeper into. And that getting into altered state of consciousness, we're able to explore that ocean, and we can explore that ocean in many different ways. And when we explore the ocean, there are always new things we can learn, no matter how many times we've dove in deep into it. And I feel that breathwork brings us more in touch with the basics of exploring that ocean. And those basics are breathing and allowing. So through breathing and allowing the experience, we can explore altered state of consciousness. And to clarify allowing for you, with allowing, I basically just mean being with what is. So being with what is. So being with and breathing through whatever comes up in your experience. And breathwork brings us in touch with those basics. And that we're able to get into that altered state without using any tools. The same way we can swim and explore the ocean without any tools, just through swimming, just with our bodies. So we are able to do that. But also throughout time and throughout human history, we've created so many different tools that helps us to explore the ocean. Like, for example, diving equipment. So nowadays, most divers, they use, and scientists who explore the oceans, they use these very well-developed tools to explore the ocean, to get to know it better on an even deeper level, and they're able to get very deep into the ocean quite easily. And still they have to put effort into getting deep. It's not easy in the sense of like, oh, it's a super comfortable experience, but you're able to do it over and over again. They're able to get that deep with those tools. And I think that we can see also psychedelic as very, very powerful tools that have evolved and developed with humanity. So, and even we now know this a lot better, which is a completely different topic, too big to go into right now, but is that psychedelics has been a part of our human history and how we've developed as humans over maybe even thousands of years, or maybe even more, we don't know. It's still a little bit an unexplored area. But what this teaches us is that these tools, which we can call psychedelics, that they can really help us in going and delving very deep into our consciousness. And it can help us, give us such deep understanding that we're still able to get a deeper understanding of the ocean without all the tools and all the technology. We're still able to get a deeper understanding of it. Only it will take a lot longer time, or even more like a basic skill set to be able to go that deep. And that's the way I also see kind of psychedelic therapy and breathwork. Both are extremely powerful. They don't contradict each other, which is great, because of holotropic breathwork and psychedelic therapy, because of that same framework, because of those same concepts in helping us to make sense of these experiences, in how much we can make sense of it. But because it's so similar, these experiences are extremely complementary. So what I mean by this is that breathwork helps us to get in touch with the basics of our body, and that we as humans, we are able to get into altered state of consciousness in infinite ways. And also just through breathing, we're able to do that. And that psychedelics don't necessarily do that for us, but they are tools that help us, right? And the tools that can be extremely beneficial, and that the basics, the breathwork, can help us to use tools like psychedelics even better, because we're back in touch with the basics of breathing and allowing. And so I think that both experiences, both psychedelic experiences and breathwork experience, are extremely beneficial. And it's really about what you need at what time. And I think that is something to trust your intuition and to trust your own self-healing intelligence. And that's what breathwork and psychedelic therapy brings us in touch with our self-healing intelligence that is within us and that we can access with or without tools. And when it comes to my personal recommendations, and I think it's always way better to trust your own intuition and then follow someone else's advice, but if I would give it, is to explore both. So if you're someone who says, I'm interested in psychedelic therapy and using psychedelics for healing and self-exploration, or maybe many other things. And I'm also interested in breathwork. If you have the opportunity, I would recommend you to try both and to see what you can learn from both of these modalities and both of these experiences. And I feel like it can be extremely empowering. And it's really also, again, like, that's why I said to follow your own personal intuition, because it's really about what you want and what you need. So if you're someone who finds it really difficult to work through your own defensive mechanisms, or that for you it's very difficult to get into your emotions, and just doing the breath with the breath, you're not getting to that place, maybe using a very powerful tool like psychedelics can be extremely beneficial. And maybe if you're at a stage where you're like, okay, I've experienced a lot with psychedelics, and I'm not actually interested in exploring my own self-healing intelligence without these powerful tools, but just to see how I can do it just with my breath and just with my body, then maybe it's really cool to experience breathwork. But like I said before, I think both are extremely powerful. And what I love so much, and I think that's what I loved about the experience and the conversations I had with the breathwork facilitator, is that these experiences are so similar, and that we can learn from both and we can heal in both ways, which is extremely powerful. And I would say that the experiences are more similar than that they are different. But like I mentioned before, psychedelics are extremely powerful tools that help us explore parts of our consciousness we might not be able to without. And yeah, so that's why I'm really grateful that we both have holotropic breathwork and psychedelics today, so we can use both to get a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we live in. So if you have any experiences with psychedelic therapy and or holotropic breathwork, and you would like to share the similarities, differences, or what you found on your experience, comment it down below. And if it brings up any questions in you, what I've just said, also feel free to just post your question, and I would love to answer it. And if you're like, oh, I would love to see more videos learning more about all these topics and all about all these things like psychedelics and therapy and so much more, subscribe to our channel A Whole New High, and you're receiving more videos from us in the future. And for now, I just want to thank you for watching, and I want to wish you a beautiful day.